This episode of Jack is brought to you by Weaver Leather.
Throughout this video series, I'm going to be talking to you about reading your horse's body language. So one of the best places to read the horse's body language is when they're out together in a herd. So that's what we're going to do this morning is I'm going to turn Popcorn out with some different horses and we're going to watch his body language. Pay attention to his ears, his eyes, especially if we zoom in enough on his nose, if he gets wrinkles around his nose like he's frustrated, his tail, and I'll be talking you through it. But I want you to actually see the body language from horse to horse, and then we can apply that to horse to human. Now the reason this is going to be exciting is because this is a young stallion, Jack, the one we've been working with. And he is probably going to challenge a lot more. And you're going to see a lot more of that dominant type behavior. I'm interested in turning them out together because for Jack to stand a chance of staying a stallion, he needs some socialization. If I'm the only thing that he interacts with, this isn't going to go well because he has a lot of needs to play and to interact with other horses. And that's something that another horse can do really well, especially because I have a horse like Popcorn that is very good at being with even more dominant stallions. And Popcorn's always ended up being the dominant one even over the stallions. He's just very good at interacting. Because even right here, you can still see that he's giving Jack a chance to investigate him. He's allowing all this to happen. Now there, Jack struck at him, which was the first question that was asked, and Popcorn answered it. Now Popcorn didn't go over the top answering it, didn't say, "You must now die," and Jack said, maybe I should reconsider how I approach you. Popcorn did position himself, which is one of the reasons you don't want your horse, see the nipping going on, you don't want your horse putting their butt towards you because it does mean something. And Popcorn moved his butt towards him, but he's now allowing Jack to chew slightly on him because they're just interacting. Popcorn likes to play, but when Jack crosses the line, Popcorn will let him know. And I'm pretty sure Jack will cross the line because he's just pushing a little more and a little more. I mentioned before that Greg did a great job of finding a place that had a bunch of geldings to turn Jack out with. And one of the reasons he's been pretty good for me to work with is because he does understand communicating with horses. Now, seeing him bite another horse this much would explain a little bit of what happened to me during that first week when, out of the blue, it looked like he just kind of decided to taste test me one day when we were walking out to the camera. But if you watch him interacting with horses, that looks like that's one of his favorite things to do is kind of chewing on that other horse. Now you're getting a little bit more of that front-to-front meeting. Now Popcorn's going, how about if I poke and prod you just a little bit? But I love watching the interaction. I know Popcorn very well because I've had him for so many years and turned him out with so many different horses. Because I know him well, I get to know the other horses even quicker. I like that Jack's not just being all-out aggressive. There's a lot of playfulness. Like, that's just a little silly. Head upside down biting is not good fighting form if he were out in the wild, so he's just more playful. Although with the stallions, even when they're playful, there's an underlying current of testing. But Popcorn's very tolerant about this kind of stuff, and then he will definitely tell when Jack crosses the line, he will let him know. It's fascinating for me to watch how Popcorn keeps his body position, what he considers to be dangerous, how he moves around. Why are you being chewed on, Popcorn? Apparently it doesn't hurt. When you watch them, even a mother and a foal. Now, I love that shot right there because if you watch what Jack did, he dropped his shoulder down. And I'd tell people over and over again, controlling that horse's shoulder is a really big deal. And especially you see it in stallions. When they want to push each other around, they do what Jack did there. When Popcorn reached out, you saw Jack drop his shoulder into him and push because they are incredibly strong. So later when you hear me referencing being able to move your horse's shoulder and being very aware if your horse is pushing with its shoulder is something you need to pay attention to because it is how they control each other. And that was Jack doing that right there. I'm going to push you with my big shoulder. Popcorn was offended, so he squealed and turned around. But not overly offended. He didn't unleash any unjust anger. He's still sizing Jack up. Jack's got a little squeak and jump there. I'm going to go ahead and move him around a little. And we'll see what happens. So you'll notice I had him move forward. And Popcorn moved forward, and Jack took it a little bit as, oh, he's moving away from me. And he kind of followed up behind him. And now he's standing in this kind of position. With this being a young stallion, you're not sure. Will he think about mounting Popcorn? Will he think about just pushing him around? You're not really sure, but you can still definitely get the sense that Jack's trying to find the limits. He's testing the limits. It's kind of like a kid you'll find on certain days that they'll just push and nag and nag and pick and nag to try to find where your breaking point is. And that's what Jack is doing right now to Popcorn. Popcorn said to him once, hey, you're starting to get on my nerves. Then he just said it again right there with that squeak and that raised leg. And so he's been very tolerant. You're starting to see the annoyance with Popcorn. And Popcorn's going to start saying, look, right, what I really like right there was that Popcorn walked forward a few feet. He's trying to have a conversation with Jack. What's impressive about Jack is that he hasn't just really attacked Popcorn, hasn't just gone all out crazy, which is a good sign for Jack because some of these young stallions just attack and think about breeding. These guys are actually having a conversation. And that's what's made Jack easier to work with. That's a funny camera angle with Popcorn just kind of resting on his back while he lets him slightly chew on him. You get the feeling Popcorn's been waiting for that, and that was that moment when Jack thought about mounting him, and Popcorn's like, no, man, that's not cool. And back off, and then Jack went, okay, not sure what to do with that, because he didn't try to kill me, even though he said no, and so they're still sizing each other up. And I'm going to continue turning these horses out together during the remainder of the time that Jack is here. You'll also notice Popcorn's barefoot in the back right now. And that was part of the factor. Jack is barefoot all the way around. And there is a real risk when you turn horses out together. But to me, there's also a real risk if you don't. I'm not saying that you can just go throwing any horses out with any other horses and expect results like what we're getting right here. And it is rare to have a gelding that you can turn out with stallions and have the gelding be dominant. But Popcorn's always been like that, and I've known that. But to me, the risk of not turning this young stallion out with somebody who will push him around like Popcorn will, the risk is a lot higher that he's going to end up being a gelding, and I don't want him to be a lonely, isolated stallion, even if he ends up being a great show horse. To me, that would be such a sad thing if he had to live all the time alone. I'm really, really happy that I have a horse like Popcorn to turn him out with. The reason they're so trainable is because they are social animals, because they do have that hierarchy. You can just see Popcorn going, I'm going to act nonchalant like this isn't happening and see whether or not he takes the bait on this again. And Jack didn't back off that much right there, so Popcorn, even though he squealed, he's still very tense. If you look at his whole body, he's looking at me just a little bit because I moved my hand, and Popcorn's trying to see if there's anything there. Jack looks like he's in love. He's like, "You're my friend. I'm going to bite you. I don't know what friendship really is." But you can definitely see Popcorn is still testing. And what's interesting is that Popcorn will get, if he follows his normal pattern, Popcorn will get more firm over the next few days that he gets turned out with him, which is very much the same training that I try to do when I'm training Jack. I keep getting more and more firm as we go because we're getting to know each other. And that's the same thing I've seen Popcorn do year after year.
Check out this video footage of Popcorn turned out with Jack almost a month after this original turnout video series was filmed. Look at how much more loud Popcorn is being with his body. Talk about natural horsemanship at its finest.
Join us next week for another episode of Jack.